Well, hey there. It is now April 6th. We're back from break, and man, this water's low. Okay, just to give you an idea, this water, when we left, 10 days ago, was up to the black line, and it was actually overflowing out of the overflow pipe there, that PVC pipe, specifically because we knew that we weren't going to be in here for about, I don't know, 10 days. And we wouldn't have a chance to check on the water supply, to check on the water level. Also, it meant that we did not have the opportunity to feed the fish. So there's a couple things I want to show you first before we actually get into filling the water and then get over to the plants. First things first, the water. I'm going to fill it up into this tank, and this is the first tank that the water will go into. It then cycles through tanks 2, 3, 4, through the sediment tank, and then it's going to come back in here. In filling the water here into tank 1, I'm going to wait until this water reaches this first black line. Because what's going to happen as tank 1 fills with water, it's going to settle across the other 3 tanks and the sediment tank. And by the time it reaches the first black line on the filter, this will still be fuller than the other 3 tanks. I'll turn the water off, and by the time it all works out, the water will actually end up settling probably about just below the second black line, or it could be overflowing. But that's literally why we put in the overflow valve. So where'd the water go? Well, first, evaporation. A lot of this water simply evaporated. The second, some of it got sucked up by the plants. Again, evaporation. This is normal. This is what is expected to happen. And this should happen. So that's the first thing, the water supply. Second thing, what happens to the fish? Because after all, we didn't feed them anything. Here on tank 1, you'll notice that there is a distinct line between the top here. Oh, and the fish are coming over to try and eat my finger. But there's this top line here that distinctly is algae, and then below that is nothing. That's because the fish have eaten everything off of the tank walls below that line. That's where the algae was. These are fish that eat algae. So because of that, when we don't feed them, they are going to eat the algae that is on the tanks. But what I am going to do right now is bring the handy dandy, you'll notice I like that term, bring the handy dandy hose over here, and I am going to start filling the water. And that'll work right in there. Yep, we got good water flow, it's going in, and that means that this tank will eventually start filling up, and I will keep an eye on the water level on the filter. And now we go over to the plant beds. Okay, so here we are on the grow beds, and let me turn off the grow lights so that you can see it a little better. And it is not quite the sea of green that I had hoped for. So we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 shoots coming up from the einkorn here. And then here with the red wheat, we have 2. Woo, 2, whopping 2. Not exactly the growth rates I had hoped for, but given the fact that this is probably not the most hospitable environment for einkorn, nor is it the most hospitable environment for wheat, we're going to take a look and see what goes on as we continue. I've got some algae growth here that I can just scoop out and give to the fish. A little more duckweed growth in here. This is actually some really good duckweed growth. And the avocado pit that I planted this summer that had died and come back is now coming back. So I need to water that and, get that going again. Now, is this a failure? By no means is this a failure. This simply means that these plants that are growing shoots, I will rearrange and take the baskets out and put those into like a single raft so that I have one consolidated raft of wheatgrass is growing that is specifically einkorn and then specifically red wheat, and then I'll just keep going that way. So figure that today's Tuesday, April 6th. I'll probably let this go until, let's say, Friday. That's April 10, right? 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm sorry, Friday, April 9th, 2021. And then on the 9th, on Friday, I will consolidate all of these that have shoots growing into one raft. And then we'll assess at that point what we're going to do with the other rafts. Yep. So no, this is not a failure in any way, shape, or form. This is simply part of the process. So let's get the grow lights back on. And now we get to have some more fun. Woo! Now that I have the grow lights turned off so that we can actually see what's going on without it looking radioactive, let's take a look and see what we have here. Today is April 9th, and we now have growth that's been going on for just about 2 weeks, and not nearly as big as I thought it was going to be, but we still have growth. So let's just take a look here. For einkorn growth, positive growth right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shoots that are still up. Okay, so 10 shoots out of almost 100, if not more, different pods, which each had 3 seeds in them. So almost 300 seeds, probably. And that's a pretty small number for a germination rate. Gonna have to do a little more work, see if the fact that I was using completely dehulled seeds, if that's what caused it to not do as well as far as germination. It's a possibility. Taking a look at the red wheat, numbers are even more dismal. I have 2 new shoots, 1 and 2. That's it, which means everything else has not germinated, and those seeds, nothing's happening. So they are just going to still sit in the moist coir, and nothing's going to happen, which means they're going to rot eventually. So this is what I'm going to do. Not abandon this, because this is not a failure. You have to realize that in everything we do in any sort of scientific research situation, you don't have a failure. You have an adjustment that you're making based upon the data that you've collected. So the data here is the fact that we have a very low germination rate for einkorn, for the einkorn seeds that we used. We have a very low germination rate for the red wheat seeds that we used. Okay. Would it make a difference if we switch things up? Possibly. So that's something we can look at moving forward. If I need to get einkorn wheat berries that still have the hull on for germination, is it the fact that they're in a very moist environment? Do they not work as well in that environment? Don't know. That would require looking at some of the white papers that you all have found, and also taking a look and seeing what works and what doesn't historically. The fact that I have like green and then brown here, which means that something's not making a connection with the constant green growth that should be occurring in a grass seed in water shooting up. But again, this is something that I'm going to look at through the research and the literature that is available. This is an ongoing process. This is not a failure. It's simply data that we're collecting. So back to what I was going to do. What I will be doing is taking these cups, these baskets with coir, with seeds that are growing, that have germinated where we have growth, and I'll be moving them all onto one raft. All on one raft. And that raft will be down here, so I'm going to have the twine up to support this in the breeze so that it doesn't get blown over one way or the other. All these other rafts, I will leave the coir in, and I will plant something else. Now, whether that's going to be einkorn seeds that have the hull on them, or the husk on them, or if it's going to be the same situation down here for the red wheat, if it's going to be more red wheat, and I actually buy new red wheat seeds as opposed to, putting in something else, I don't know. But I am going to collect, first of all, the entire number of seeds that we have in here versus how many have germinated, And then that gets input into the data table. And then we proceed from there. And this is simply a collection of data. Here's the plus side. We do have some seeds that grew. So it's not a total loss. And, you know, this is what happens when you do research. And it's okay. This is cool. This is fun. And yes, I'm kind of geeking out right now. But yes, this is research. Well, hi there. It is April 14, so this is now a week and 1 day past our return from spring break, which now makes this what we first started planting on March 17 on St. Patrick's Day. So March 17 through March 23. So we're roughly going on about 3 weeks worth of growth at this point, or 3 weeks worth of time rather, from when we planted to today when I'm taking this recording. This is the einkorn wheat. So within the einkorn wheat that I planted, over 300 seeds, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 shoots that germinated and sprouted, broke surface and actually sprouted. Of those, let's see, this one here is showing signs of wilting at the very top of the leaves and has not yet shown another shoot coming out. This one here is growing well. It's the best growing of all 10 of them. We've got this one here where there is new growth coming out of the shoot, out of the center of it. The one in its pod with it is showing signs of wilting at the top, and so far no new growth coming out of the center. This one here, new growth and a good looking blade of grass here, all the way at the top. No sign of wilting. This one here, kind of a scrawny looking one, showing signs of wilting at the top. This one here is showing good solid growth. You got signs of wilting at the very top, but also the shoot that's coming out of the center isn't looking bad. I mean, there's no signs of wilt there yet. This one here, definite signs of wilting. It looks like it's about to die. And then you got this one here, which is showing really good signs, little signs of wilting and oversaturation in here. And then this one, which is scrawny, barely hanging on. It's almost like a runt. This is the einkorn wheat. This is all of the einkorn wheat that sprouted, that germinated and sprouted. And it's kind of disappointing, to be honest, the fact that we had all this planted and this is all that's grown so far. So from this point forward, this will be the only raft that will still be looking at einkorn for growth. And I will plant peppers and tomato plants, or pepper and tomato seeds in these pods so that we can get growth happening, possibly some kale and some basil. We'll see. But this is the einkorn right here. 10 seeds that germinated and sprouted. And of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? 7 that look like they're doing decently well. Let's hop now over to the red wheat. Behold the hard red wheat that we planted. This is one left over from the first part of the school year that I kept growing just because it was doing so well and I didn't want to rip it out. I have this shoot that is doing fairly well, and then this shoot, which is doing fairly well also. Out of all of this, I have 2 seeds that germinated and that are growing. 2, that's it. Dos, deux. That's kind of depressing. That's like really depressing, actually, because that means that previously when I planted the hard red wheat, it has grown it's taken off like mad, which means that either the seeds are bad or the alkalinity is so high or so concentrated that we have now made it an inhospitable growing environment for this particular plant. I don't know. This is where a little more research and a little more digging goes into the entire process. But what I will be doing is I'll be moving these 2 pods over into this raft so that all the grass will be in, or all the wheatgrass will be in one raft, just like I did with the einkorn. And then everything else I'll be planting with kale, with basil. I don't know, maybe I'll put some flowers in here and make it look pretty. We'll see. So the real question that many of you will have on your minds whenever you're in a situation like this, what does this mean for our output? What does this mean for the process? What does this mean for, let's be honest, your grade? Well, this is scientific research. This is agricultural research. Sometimes you have things that perform exactly as you've hypothesized, and you're simply in a situation where you're confirming your original thoughts. Sometimes you have results that completely negate every hypothesis you had, and you're scratching your head going, oh my goodness, what just happened? So then you start to isolate the variables that are within your hypothesis, that are within your experiment, whether it is the water temperature, whether it is the water pH, whether it is the alkalinity, whether it is the amount of dissolved fish waste that is in there, whether it is the amount of chlorine that's in there, all these different variables that could have an impact upon the results of your actual experiment. This is a part of the process, and it's okay to fail in this situation. It's great to fail in this situation because that means that you have somewhere else and something else to find out, something else to learn. And that's what the entire process is really all about, learning. Sometimes it's going to be a real easy walk in the park. Sometimes it will be incredibly frustrating and you're scratching your head going, what the heck am I doing? What went wrong? Maybe something didn't go wrong. Maybe something just happened and you need to determine now what that thing is. Welcome to research, kids. Buckle up. It's a fun ride.